Welcome back to Studio 5 Drone Productions. This week we are going to discuss the potential impact that tariffs are going to have on the drone industry here in the USA. Tariffs are anticipated to significantly impact the drone industry in multiple ways, primarily by increasing costs and potentially reshaping the supply chain. Here's a detailed breakdown of the expected effects. Higher prices for consumers and businesses. Tariffs levied on imported drones and their components, especially from major manufacturing hubs like China, directly translate to increased costs. For example, a recently announced tariff of 34% on Chinese goods is projected to significantly raise the retail prices of popular drone models like DJI's Mavic 4 Pro. Even a smaller 10% tariff is expected to lead to noticeable price hikes. Increased cost of parts and accessories. Tariffs aren't limited to complete drones. Components such as batteries, motors, propellers, gimbals, flight controllers, and chargers, many of which are manufactured in China, will also become more expensive. This will affect not only the cost of new drones, but also the expenses associated with repairs, replacements, and maintaining spare parts inventories. For instance, the price of essential accessories like intelligent flight batteries and ND filters for DJI drones is also predicted to rise substantially due to the new tariffs. Supply chain disruptions. Delayed restocking and reduced inventory. Higher tariffs can lead to retailers being more cautious about stocking large quantities of imported drones and parts due to increased costs and uncertainty. This could result in slower restocking times and limited availability of certain models or components for consumers and businesses. Impact on U.S. manufacturers relying on foreign components. While tariffs aim to protect domestic industries, many U.S.-based drone manufacturers rely on components sourced from overseas, particularly China. Reciprocal tariffs or export controls on critical materials from these countries could disrupt their supply chains and increase their production costs, potentially offsetting any advantage gained from tariffs on finished imported drones. Potential for shifts in sourcing. To mitigate the impact of tariffs, some companies might explore alternative sourcing options for components and even consider relocating manufacturing or assembly processes to countries not subject to these tariffs. For example, DJI is reportedly expanding its operations to the US, which could help them avoid some tariff costs and potentially build trust with US partners amid security concerns. Wider industry effects. Businesses utilizing drones for services like real estate photography, construction, surveying, inspections, and videography will face higher costs for purchasing new equipment and maintaining their fleets. This could lead to reduced profit margins or the need to increase prices for their services, potentially impacting their competitiveness, especially for smaller operators and freelancers. Smaller drone brands that heavily rely on Chinese-made parts might struggle to absorb the increased costs or find affordable alternatives, potentially leading to them becoming less competitive or even disappearing from the market. Increased costs and supply chain uncertainties could potentially delay the launch of new drone models and slow down the pace of innovation within the industry. Impact on emergency services and government agencies. Budget-constrained organizations like volunteer fire departments and smaller police agencies may face significant challenges in acquiring the necessary quantities of high-quality drones due to inflated prices, potentially hindering their operational capabilities. The Trade Agreement Act also bars government agencies from using certain products not made in the U.S., further complicating procurement if domestic alternatives are significantly more expensive. Potential increase in demand for refurbished drones and domestic alternatives. As new drone prices rise, consumers and businesses might increasingly look towards the refurbished drone market or domestically produced alternatives, if available and cost competitive. Consumer behavior. Anticipating price increases, consumers who are considering purchasing a drone may be incentivized to make their purchase sooner rather than later to avoid higher costs. Higher prices for established brands due to tariffs might lead some consumers to consider less expensive alternatives, potentially impacting market share. Recent developments. The US government has recently implemented and is considering further tariffs on goods imported from China, including drones and their components. The current tariff on drones from China is reportedly around 34%. China has also placed some US defense manufacturers involved in the drone industry on an unreliable entity list, potentially impacting the supply of certain components. The de minimis exemption, which previously allowed some low-value imports to avoid tariffs, has also been closed, meaning even smaller drone components shipped directly to consumers could be subject to duties. In conclusion, tariffs are poised to create significant headwinds for the drone industry by increasing costs across the board, potentially disrupting supply chains and reshaping the competitive landscape. Businesses and consumers will need to adapt to these changes, and the long-term effects could include shifts in manufacturing, sourcing, and market dynamics. Until next time, fly safe and stay blessed.